I'm super pleased to invite to our stage Geraldine McBride from MyWave, the CEO and co-founder. We also have our very own Torsten Hoffman, who's our Vice President of Global Banking. And then we have Yanni Dulume, maybe, from Deloitte. So they're here to talk to us about hard for me to say, accelerating process transformation. Take it away.
Very good, excellent. So we didn't realize we had 3 chairs, so we thought we would use the 3 chairs. And in accelerating process transformation, I will be looking at it from the process point of view, the use of also SAP Signavio together with MyWave, and how we can in fact improve agility. So what I'll do is probably pass over to Yanni and give you the clicker to begin with, because you're going to do the first setup. I'm going to do some demos, and Torsten can answer any questions on what is Signavio, because we sometimes find it's a very well best-kept secret.
Yeah, thank you. Hey there, Yanni Dulamis. I'm a partner at Deloitte. And I think we owe a check to the last panel because they teed up our topic quite nicely, talking about the generative nature of some of these new technologies, and I think that's what we want to get into a bit today. So we'll start off in talking about some of the challenges we're seeing in the industry and what our clients are coming and asking us and talking about, and how those challenges are being able to be addressed by using some of the new tools and technologies like MyWave and Signavio, and really architecting a more holistic solution for our clients. And then Geraldine will show a demo of some of the power that we've seen with MyWave and how it works, and hopefully leave some time for some questions at the end. I know we have only 20, 30 minutes or so, so we'll make sure we'll leave some time at the end.
And the other thing is I see some faces that were in the workshop yesterday, so don't worry, we have some fresh new demos today, so we've got some additional things to show you, so you won't see the same things.
So what's the problem that we're facing? And I think this should resonate with most folks here. Given the current nature of the economic climate and where we're seeing really cost pressures come down, but the need for digital transformation to keep up with customer demands and needs, how do you square the two, right? How, as a bank and a financial institution, are you able to, with less money, do more and serve your clients better? And this is what we're trying to solve here. Some of the current challenges that we're seeing, and I think these will probably resonate with most folks in the room: legacy technologies, old systems that have core code, a lot of decision logic and process logic tied up in them that the person that wrote it may or may not be at the firm anymore. It's 10, 15 years old, and now you're trying to figure out how do we extract that and use it to move forward. Speed to market. The rise of fintechs has made the ability to move to market much quicker, and it's a little harder for some of the old kind of brick and mortar type financial institutions to keep up with that pace of change, but they need to, because that's where the customer wants, and that's where they're trying to arc to. New regulations, I think this is something that will always be prevalent in the banking industry. How do you not only address your current regulatory environment and needs and expectations, but also make it so that as new regulations come out, you're able to keep up with them and answer regulators' questions in a quick and efficient manner. Cost pressures, I think this is very timely and topical. The current interest rate environment and where the economy is heading may make it a bit tougher, and I know a lot of banks are kind of restricting on how much they want to spend, and so being able to do all of these and address all of these with a more limited budget. And then optimized processes. I think, we were just talking this morning how process reengineering was big in the 90s, and then it kind of went away again, and I think now it's coming back, but in a bit of a new and different way. A lot of these new technologies and ability to use these the new platforms still need an underlying clean process chassis almost to say, here are the actors involved, here are all the exception paths, here's all the rounding, because without a clean, transparent picture, the bot or the AI or whatever it is will just go a bit wild. So how do you constrain and govern and maintain all of that in a really clean, easy way? And I think that's where a lot of the process, really optimizing the process and providing that transparency with a tool like Signavio really allows for firms to accelerate. So transformation using generative AI, the left side is kind of the traditional SDLC. It should be pretty familiar to most folks, right? You get kind of business requirement, it's in a Word document or some other document, and then gets handed technology who goes and builds something, They go back to the business, say, is this what you wanted? There's this back and forth and a lot of inherent translation risk. What we're trying to get to is this notion of accelerating decreasing the cost and really accelerating that pace of change. So where we've seen is you can actually create the process in a tool like Signavio, the business process modeling capability within inside of that, annotate the different functional requirements on top of the activities provided by the context of the transformation hierarchy. That design, in the design environment, you can then run and test simulations, test, is this what we want to do? Okay, the process broke here, let's change this, this is not what we wanted. Run test cases through, so really leveraging a lot of the power in Signavio to then go and see, is the design really what me as a business user expected? Once that has been agreed to, then you can put into production and really do the integration type testing and maintain and deploy. That Signavio basis is then used as the ongoing governance and maintenance of the model to say, when I need to go back and make a change, whether it's in the process or some of the decision logic, I can go back to my design environment, change a value, change a field, rerun the testing simulation in that design environment, and then go back to production. This, where we've generally seen this type of run what you model approach being used, we've generally seen around a 40% reduction in time and budget of large tech implementations. And it's really this intersection of clarity of process, transparency, and connecting to some of the newer tools and techniques that allows for something like this to happen. When you work it all together, it's a pretty big mindset shift and hard for a lot of firms, especially on the technology side, to really take in. But once you get it and get people to buy in, it ends up being a really powerful ongoing maintenance mechanism. So then what does this look like when it all comes together? I think the other thing, the proliferation of these new transformation type tools does is it kind of muddies the water a bit. And so what you really want to do is to be able to architect the right solution. If this is my design capability, how do I architect and stitch together the right pieces in order to make the change? So what something could look like is you can start off with collecting your requirements in a tool like Excel or an Alteryx, really gathering the decision logic and the information that is needed to get processed. You run that through your tool like Signavio to say, here's what happens, here's where the different decisions are called upon, here's who's calling them, here's how it's imputed. You can then run it through MyWave, and it gets executed directly into the production environment. I think, and it's this arc of stitching together the different solutions and what each tool, the place that each tool plays along the spectrum really allows to pull that transformation. And I think again, to the last panel before, this has now changes who is doing what in the process. So it's really meant to put the onus more on the front and the ops user to say, I am the end user and I want to make the change and this is what I want, so I can now have access to go do it directly. What I don't need to do is work with my technology, give them some requirements documents, right? So it really is meant to empower the front office and democratize a lot of this transformation. So I'll just tee up the quick case study. So this is a case study we're using right now around KYC, and how do you essentially take a large rule set. There's a baseline model of KYC. This is a problem that everybody has. Client onboarding is the eternal problem in banking. And so how do you really take that and make it a bit more streamlined? So you can start with a baseline set of KYC requirements, and then have, if you're a global institution, you have 20, 30, 40 different geographies you're in, normalize that rule set to say, if you're in this jurisdiction and you're this type of product, then what are my underlying flows, right? And so we've partnered with MyWave to create a bit of a use case around this to say, we can provide some of the requirements that we're seeing, and then, as Geraldine will then show, how does this then get transferred automatically into the generative part about, this is the workflow, this is the UI, based on the underlying logic that is needed in order to conduct the case.
Yep, thank you very much. Thanks, Yanni. So what's interesting is that I think in the prior session we heard about how generative AI platforms left without parameters and rules will never be trusted by banks. So what we did about 7 years ago when we started is we've built a generative AI platform, and I'm going to show you 2 use cases today. One where we are constraining it because in a regulated environment, AI must have rules. These are not hard-coded rules though, these are not decision trees, these are algorithms. But what we're doing is we're creating conditions around the algorithms that regulate what the algorithms are allowed to do and not do, and orchestrating data to run a process. And in the case of KYC, we don't actually understand the data. So we will have been working with the bank, who will have defined the requirements, as Yanni said, and as we've been working on with Torsten, in Signavio. So Signavio gives us a great ability now to define the process and the regulations around that process. We then take that defined process and we put this into the MyWave journey generator. It means that we do not need to line up IT folks to build processes anymore. We're actually making use of MyWave that generates now the process, leveraging the Signavio process models, and we now turn that into production. So we actually export it, and then the underlying platform has the algorithms and the power to then set that up, and it also has orchestration of data. So the KYC model I'm going to show you is what I would call a limited model where we're putting constraints. We all talk about ChatGPT and we say, well, you know, AI mad in a bank, no one would trust it. MyWave works with a similar approach, but that we work with it because we have constrained it. I'm then going to show you a second case study with a major bank in Australia. And in that instance, because it's a loyalty application and because it doesn't have regulation, we can actually unconstrain it. So it can be as constrained or as unconstrained as you want. And as you're now trusting AI over time, you can allow it to become more unconstrained. So we do have natural language large models as well, and you will see that in that example. So if I just roll the tape forward, let's now think about the issue of KYC. KYC for global corporations and any company is a pain in the neck, both for the end customer and also for the bank. And if you're an international bank, being able to manage those models on a global basis can be very, very tricky. So what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to get the customer to sign up very easily. So if you can just roll now, please, the first video, because I can't control it from here, on the design side. So what we have here is the journey generator of MyWave. So we've made this process in Signavio. We can even take it from an Excel spreadsheet. So if we haven't got Signavio, it can come from Excel. And what you'll see is all of the green fields in the journey generator. It's like typing in, you can type in natural language, are basically the prompts, but we're also creating conditions. So in this instance, because it's a very regulated process, we're constraining the algorithms, and so we're basically telling the MyWave platform what are the conditions and how we're now going to develop also, whilst we're creating the conditions, the UX UI. So you'll see here that this is for Chile, so we're now entering in here, does the customer have an alternative trade name? And MyWave is also learning about processes, and so it's also coaching and prompting to the user, who can be a business user. It takes about an hour to learn this tool, what they could be entering to be able to run this process. So MyWave is learning about the process, and we can also be prompting the user here. The next releases of this tool will actually have people just typing in plain natural language, and we won't even have to do these prompts because we're going to do the translations and behind the scenes. So this is the current release of the tool. So then what happens is that as you're now typing in the prompt, you're now typing in natural language, in plain language, please enter the trade name. So that now is going to be added as a field onto the front end. So not only have we taken the Signavio process, and we're now essentially now putting that through the journey generators, and now we're building the intelligent journey, we're also now creating the front end. So this is now where we're actually down defining the field and the type of field. And you'll see in here, we've got natural language, so we could do NLP, so we can be training these models through NLP. But in this instance, because it's really simple and you don't need NLP for for this use case for KYC, what we're doing is we are just defining what field type that is. So essentially what happens is on the top right-hand button is once you've made it, you export it and then you can deploy it. And I had a colleague last week where we were given a couple of days to come up with an insurance use case model, and I think it took somebody who'd only just learnt the tool, it took them 2 hours to build an end-to-end insurance flow. So you can see how quick it is, and then we can go to deployment. So if we can now maybe play the second video, and while that's being brought up, what we're now seeing is that we've done our testing, and now we're deploying. So this is now taking the journey generator, and it's generating the journey together with the UX UI. And we have standard UX UI. So what it's doing is it's bringing now the logic into the fields, and this is a standard UX UI interface. We can also, within the tooling, have what we call custom ones, and the next one that I'll show you will be a more customized one related to a banking application. So this is now obviously now enabling you now to go from thinking about a process, designing it in Signavio, bringing it up through the journey generator, and now we have an executable process. And then, of course, we're able to then run that process. And in markets like the UK, where we can start to take data from external sources like government sources, tax sources, etc., we would actually be able to also pre-populate this with data that is known about a company in the market, but in the case of Chile, it's a pretty manual process. So that's the approach then from a KYC point of view.
Just really quick, so the prompts that we were defining there, I think one of the other powers of a tool like Signavio is the decision modeling module within it that integrates with the process modeling tool. So while the process modeling module allows you to say, here's my front to back, the decision modeling component that actually shows you in a visual format the if-then-else statements to one, not only test is the output of that if-then-else statement what I as the business you want, but then helps to normalize and say, okay, well actually Peru, Chile, and Colombia have the same if-then-else statements. I can actually normalize it to say, if it is one of these 3 countries, here's my one rule, right? So it helps to normalize the rule set. It helps you to test the rule set to say, is the logic wrong or is the data wrong, right? I think a lot of times when you go into a normal deployment, when it goes to deployment, it's like, oh, I don't know, is the logic wrong or is the data that we're ingesting the fault line? Here, we know that the logic will be clean because we're testing it in that design environment. So when it goes into MyWave, we know that the prompts will be what we expect. And now I can go right into the UX UI and get into deployment. So I think it's that power of the tool that allows you to do that testing and simulation in that design environment, allows the speed to execution that MyWave allows.
Yeah, exactly. So and once you've deployed it and you then are measuring it and you're getting analytics, we can then take that back into Signavio and optimize the process. So we're doing it essentially in that virtuous loop. So you can now manage processes, global processes, as well as processes locally. And instead of deploying IT folks to actually have to go and build the code, the pressure on IT is reduced because you're now putting capability in the hands of the users to drive the processes, and then IT is running governance over those processes. So it actually takes a lot of stress off having to go and find more programmers. So this example, the second one, is banking loyalty. So because we've got a brain within the platform, the technology can create hyper-personalized learning experiences around banking customers. And we've applied this into essentially a human experience for users where we're personalizing and optimizing and using the power of the bank to be able to bring best deals to an end customer. So if we can just roll this video, and I will explain to you what you're seeing. So in here, you have a standard banking app, and you click in the top right-hand corner, and it's now bringing up the intelligence of MyWave now, interacting to onboard the customer, finding out what they want to save money on. And in these recessionary times, they want to save money on things like fuel, energy, and groceries and other things. And we're also now finding out what card they would prefer to use. Now, MyWave is tailoring for Gemma offers and promotions related to the things that she wants to save money on. These are focusing on in-store offers. So these in-store offers are that she wants to save money on electronics goods. She's also, we know that she's interested in wine, so we're able to bring her wine offers, and these are all of the in-store. And then we've got notifications, so the platform MyWave is also proactive, so we're now telling her that she's got fuel savings at a fuel station near her. And then she's also indicated she was looking for a sofa. So Harvey Norman is a merchant in the network where she's in the store, and we're able to now make use of a voucher that she's got as part of this, where she can save $752 on that. And all she has to do is actually scan that barcode at checkout, and then she makes that instant saving, all while banking with that particular bank. So this is another way of where everything is hyper-personalized. You'll see there's a natural language piece in there as well in the middle, where she can type anything in there and tell us what else she wants. She can also change her preferences, so everything is hyper-personalized. And so if you think about it from bringing it to life, what does that look like? MyWave actually runs in behind the firewalls of the banks. It becomes your innovation tool. And so you'll see everything in blue is where the MyWave system is, and everything in red is where that particular bank has their systems. So we're making full use of their authentication and security, analytics. We have a JavaScript SDK that can come into the banking app, so everything is predefined. If you've already gone and built your front end and you want to use your own front end, it's also fine. We don't have to deploy our front end. We can actually just have us being the invisible intelligence on your front end. And then you'll see behind that, there's the payment wallet, because we've got a partner company of ours that actually does that work with us. They run the marketplace, and we white label this now and brand it for the bank, making use of their payment gateways and dashboards, etc. So I guess, what we've covered here, I might hand back to Yanni to sort of summarize here. But what we have is an end-to-end innovation capability. And it's the reason why all three of us are standing up on the stage is that we have the capability with Deloitte, the capability with SAP Signavio, the capability with MyWave now to bring process innovation and accelerate you in ways that you've never imagined before. And MyWave is essentially a very powerful AI system, but we can make it as constrained as we need to be to make it regulated, but we can also make it as free as you want to be, as we showed in the example of a loyalty use case where we're using natural language and we're using the brain and we're actually able to unleash it further because we're not in a regulated environment when it comes to getting deals. So back to you.
Yeah, I think if I think about what would be a good use case, I think anything that has a high aptitude for change, has currently very opaque within a financial institution, and needs more of that front-end view is a good use case, right? If it's rules-based, if it's very opaque, and has a higher degree of change, I think that's something that can get distilled and re-aggregated and put back out to the business user in a very consumable format, right? So we can help with the discovery. I think you saw the refinement of the rules. How do you codify and make them a bit normalized so it's not just give me the list of 5,000 rules? Well, actually, let's come up with smart rules that helps you not only normalize the rule set, but also, to Geraldine's point, constrains the AI and what you want it to do. Then the build is really, it's not even build anymore, right? It's more of a push to production, and then the deployment and the ongoing governance leveraging something like Signavio. So we think it's a pretty powerful value proposition. I think we've seen a lot of success in the market, and really it's only the start of it. I think as the last panel said, as these tools become more and more powerful, there'll start to be more of this, but it does need to be constrained, governed, and then properly transparent throughout the firm in order to truly have the power that is needed. So,
yeah, and Torsten, do you want to add anything else? Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the time to go deep in Signavio, but in general, some people, that not everyone is aware of. This is an entire suite of things. You can model, you can compare, you have dashboards, you see what, where you are in comparison to where you want to be. You have automatic uploads of data. We read a lot of data from the timestamps, all this hidden information in systems. And I just did a roadshow with a lot of executives, and they were like blown away how simple it is to get insights into the bank or insurance company. Yeah, because so far they have often teams in place with like 5 or 10 people using Visio or sometimes even Excel. And then they walk around and interview other teams, and with Signavio you have all the tools more or less to automatically read all this information because it's all hidden underneath these applications. You know, banks have a ton of applications, larger one, between 1,500, 2,500 applications. Under them is always a database. In the database is always a field what is used just for technical consistency. That means a timestamp, which employee did what when, and all this information is just used to keep the database more or less straight, yeah. And we use the same information, what is hidden, what you usually don't see in the user screen, and read this information, and then you get very useful insights. This is like an X-ray machine for the enterprise.
Yeah.
You get insights. It would take years to get all these things. I mean, we don't have the time, unfortunately, to go through all the use cases and so on, but it's really a very powerful solution, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, again, in banking complexity, it's actually then how we can bring the transparency. But then once you've done that, now you can go into rapid iteration, rapid deployment of any enterprise process. And we're applying this across things like trade finance, across KYC, in fact, any banking process. So I think we've got about 5 minutes left. So if I'm not sure if there are any questions from anyone in the audience today.
There's one in the back.
Yes. Yeah. So the architecture has an orchestration piece where we can do what we call intelligent journey orchestration. So in the middle of the journey, we can make use of data from any other system. So we don't need to ingest data. So what we can do is we learn new data as we're going and apply it in that process, but any data that exists in the execution of that process, both inside your bank, but also out in your ecosystem, we can make active use of that data in that process. But we basically do it from, the location. We tell MyWave, the data's over there, and then it will decide based on the process, where it is in its process, because it's always optimizing, the algorithm's optimizing the process as well. So because it's a generative process model, it's basically, if there's 24 steps and you only need, and we know the data, and there's 3 things left that we don't know, we'll only actually ever take the user or the customer through the 3 steps that are unknown to get to the outcome, orchestrating that data. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you listening to us today. Thank you.